Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Looney Tunes, brought to us by Sunsoft. Looney Tunes is a classic platformer that you play as a different Looney Tune on each one of the stages. The game was released in 1992 and is a pretty fun little platformer that I have some memories with. The first stage we begin is as Daffy Duck. This game is in a lot of ways similar to the other Sunsoft Looney Tunes based game, the Daffy Duck game I played a little bit ago. I'm going to deal with Yosemite Sam pretty quickly, just jump on its head a couple of times in order to take care of him and move on to the next area. You can use these ramps to kind of get a lot of speed and really get going. Here we take on Marvin the Martian. It's pretty much the same thing as Yosemite Sam, just a little bit harder. You can use your disc that you have, or just jump on the enemy's heads. The disc flies all around, which is really cool. Watch out for these falling rocks as you make your way over to the right. Here we're going to hit this TNT block with our head and then quickly get over to the right so that we don't end up falling into the objects below. We're going to follow that up by a little bit of swimming. Take care of some of the enemies as you make your way down to the bottom. Watch out for Yosemite Sam again. Just going to do a couple of jumps on top of him in order to deal with him. It's actually pretty satisfying to take out enemies whether you jump on their head or use the disc to take them out. Quickly swim up here so that you don't end up getting pulled down into the pit below. And then you're going to do the very same here. Over here to the right, we have our next little boss fight. We're going to wait for this fish to wake up, and then we're going to jump on its head as it's circling around. Just stay pretty high above, and you should be able to easily float down enough to hit the enemy several times. After a few hits, it's taken care of, and we're moving on to the next level. Stage number 2 has you playing as Tweety. As Tweety Bird, you're going to fly over to the right side, watching out for objects, as well as Sylvester that's going to try to grab a hold of you. If Sylvester grabs you, you end up losing health. Your goal with Sylvester is to kind of trick him into falling into the various open manholes so that you can keep moving on without him potentially grabbing you. He does keep spawning though, so it's pretty much non-stop throughout. Sometimes staying afloat can be a little bit difficult. I love the fact that also included in this is Sylvester Jr. Some objects, when you get hit by them, it actually speeds you up, which is extremely useful. Kind of weird when it happens, but when it does, definitely take advantage of it. Here I'm trying to get Sylvester to get out of my way so that I can escape and then I can grab some extra health. I love the fact that Sylvester Jr. is in the game. At the very end of the area, grab the bird seed, and that is the end of the stage. Level number 3 has you playing as Porky Pig. This is a flying scrolling level, and to begin the stage, we're just going to go into the lower right corner and sit here for the first, 40 seconds or so of the level. No enemy can hurt you while you're down here. After you see some flashes on the screen, that's when we know that some of the enemies are going to change up, and thus we have to move away from the corner and actually deal with some enemies. Once you start seeing these appear, you know to move back so that you can get ready to take on the next wave of enemies. Just kind of stay to the left side, moving up and down against the wall, and you should be able to dodge most of the projectiles being fired out at you, as well as take out the few enemies as well. Watch out for these bombs. If you can't hit them enough to destroy them, just make sure you're out of the way of them when they blow up. Here we deal with our next boss fight. Just kind of move up and down, firing at the witch. Sometimes it'll charge forward and you gotta move up or down to get away from it. After the witch is done, then you have the real fight beginning with the giant star that moves up and down, firing out these forks as well as projectiles out at you. The projectiles aren't too bad to miss, but the fork and the like will kind of home in on you, making it a lot more challenging to actually get out of the way of. A lot of times with those you want to destroy them before they come flying at you. After a pretty lengthy little fight here, we're able to defeat the boss and move on to level number 4. Level 4 is a nice little break. It's a Tasmanian Devil stage, and basically it's a bonus level. You don't have to do anything at all. You can just stand still for the 60 seconds and you win. Or you can make your way through the level, destroying as much of it as you like and collecting the various pieces of meat, and the more meat you collect, the more points you get. But really, there's not a lot of points, just a nice little break between the other levels. It's not necessarily the most fun little bonus game that there is, but we're just going to keep going for a little while and then just kind of wait out the last few seconds and move on to the next level. Stage number 5 has us playing as Speedy Gonzales. We're going to head over to the right to deal with this mummy. We're going to jump on its head and get a nice little kind of pattern going. We're just jumping on its head and getting off of it and then jumping again. Next area, you have to climb on up. You can grab an extra life as well as some health as you do so. Be careful of the spikes lining the ceiling. Be very careful in this room you don't get crushed by the giant amount of spikes coming down, and then in the next room you have to quickly platform between these geysers that are moving up and down. Here we have our next little mini fight. Just watch out of the way of the boss as it crashes into the ground. For this part, you have to kind of keep moving amongst all the pieces as they do, just making sure that you don't get crushed by them as they move. It takes a while, but eventually they will move so that you actually can escape into the lower right corner and get out of the area. Next up, we're going to drop on down the opening here. You can grab an extra life as you fall down if you want to, but just make your way down to the bottom. Speedy is able to do a little dance and thus hit enemies, which is effective a bit, but also takes a little bit of time, so I don't use it that often. Here we go with the next boss fight. We're going to watch out for the bats that he throws on out, jumping on his head as he does so. It doesn't take long to drain most of his health in this form before he turns into a giant bat and starts flying around the room, eventually diving down below and crashing into you. When he does this, jump on its head a couple more times, and the bat should be taken care of, and we're moving on to the next level. The next stage has you playing as the Roadrunner. It's not a very lengthy stage, it's mostly just you running as the Roadrunner, jumping over a handful of rocks and such, before we end up dealing with Wile E. Coyote. Once Wile E shows up, jump on his head as he throws the different weights at you. Basically, you want to wait for him to throw a weight or use one of the missiles and then take your opportunity to jump on its head. Or on him. The second part of the fight will have him doing these big explosions that do a spread shot. Just try to get in between the bullets. It can be difficult to do so, but it is possible a lot of times. And when you have those opportunities, jump on the Coyote. And once Wile E has been hit enough, he's done, and we're moving on to the next level. Stage 7 is the final stage of the game, and it is you playing as Bugs Bunny. Ride the platform over to the right side. You can collect some items as you do so. In the next screen, you can only move it while you're on it, so you have to keep jumping on and off of the platform as it moves across, watching out for the giant amount of spikes below that are rising and lowering. Here we deal with Yosemite Sam. We just jump on his head a couple of times to deal with him. We have a gauntlet against all the little mini-bosses that we dealt with throughout the game, including one that we didn't really see. The mummy that we dealt with Speedy Gonzales is going to keep jumping on its head quickly, doing a little circle pattern so that it doesn't end up hitting us. Do the same against the frog boss. We're going to watch out for the couple of projectiles that Marvin the Martian's able to get out as we jump on his head a couple of times. Here we have to deal with this boss that will throw a giant rock out at us. We want to make sure that we jump on its head after it throws the rock. You got to get it to like kind of bait it sometimes so it's able to get away from the rock enough that you're able to actually land your hit. Be very careful making your way down here. You don't get crushed by the rock as it's quickly rolling down the slopes. Here we go with the final boss fight. It's against Elmer Fudd. We're going to use a combination of our disc as well as our jumps to land on his head. Staying close to him, we can dodge most of his projectiles because they come out of the gun and go forward. As long as you're jumping on his head, he won't be able to hurt you that way. After a while, his hat comes off and the battle just keeps going, and once you deliver the final hit, you can sit back and enjoy the ending, the Looney Tunes, on the Nintendo Game Boy. instead of really having an ending, they show you a collage of random clips from throughout the game, dealing with the various bosses and the like. Overall, though, it's a very fun little platformer that I never really heard too many talk about, but is one that I definitely think is worth checking out. Being a Sunsoft game as well, it has some difficulty to it, but I definitely think it's accessible enough where most should be able to take it on. A little bit easier than the Daffy Duck or the Duck Dodgers Marvin Missions game, for sure. Also has some nice music that goes along with the game, but that's pretty much typical of all of the Sunsoft titles. As the credits finish up, you get to see your score, and then it goes to one last screen, the presented by Sunsoft screen, and then you can go back to the title screen and start the game all over again. But with that, folks, it'll wrap up this episode of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.